Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, a very impromptu Blue Monday podcast. So first of all, we must just mention that we're just recording this on the iPad, so please don't complain about the sound quality, and we have absolutely no script whatsoever, but as you can see, I've been joined today by the wonderful Harry from Bath from the Blue Monday preview show. We have just been to QPR. We're probably going to put this out on, I don't even know what day of the week is it?
Today is Wednesday.
Is it really Wednesday?
Yeah, it is. Christmas is Tuesday. Yeah, Wednesday definitely. So, yeah, Thursday tomorrow.
So we'll put this out on the Thursday. We're recording this on Boxing Day because, Harry, we have just been to QPR.
Yeah.
Just found our way back and thought some content might be appropriate.
Yeah.
Harry, we'll go through it bit by bit, but generally, before we do nuts and bolts, pretty meek, disappointing afternoon. Yes.
Indeed. I'd like to raise the mood early on by wishing everybody the happiest of Christmases. I hope you had a fantastic time and that everybody got everybody that they wanted, because what's about to follow may take some of the sheen off that. It was a fairly tough afternoon. Yeah. Team-wise,
a fairly sensible selection. So Gherkin, Spence Chambers, Pennington, Knudsen, we would have expected that back four. From the team that played Sheffield United, so it's Chalobah, Downs, Nolan. So Dazelle out, Downs back in, pretty much expected. Ward in for Edwards and Harrison starts. What do you make of the team? And as far as I can see, all pretty sensible. If you take the Sheffield United game and build on it, all pretty sensible.
Yeah, it was.
Thoughts on the team?
Yeah, it all made sense. I mean, we looked at it beforehand. We thought, well, Freeman we don't like, and we thought, well, Ward coming in for would make sense because it doesn't leave Spence isolated in a 2v1. If Freeman gets forward, you've then got a problem on that side, so Ward would give you a little bit of extra protection in theory. And we thought, well, Harrison, he's had a couple of, he's come off the bench, he's been building match fitness, and he is the type of striker, insofar as we have one, that Lambert would be able to use. Somebody that bustling striker who'll bounce off defenders. So in that sense, the midfield balance was that remained the same. We were happy with that. No criticisms from us. Sort of walking up to the ground, it all kind of makes sense. And Queen's Park Rangers, they had an interesting lineup as well.
Yeah, pretty strong. So Lumley, Furlong, Leisner, Lynch, Bidwell across the back. Luongo sitting with Scowen patrolling a little bit further forward. Voslek right, Eze central, Freeman down the left with Wells up front. So
the one thing I'll say where McLaren gets huge credit is the way because they've no ability to bring in any players. They're stuck with what they have right the way through the season. And they've had a couple of injuries. They've lost Cameron, the midfielder. They've lost Angel Rangel, the right back. So he's been having to manoeuvre players out of position. They were without Lynch as well, one of the centre backs. He was back today. But again, you had Jordan Cousins coming in, playing at central midfield, then playing at right back. He was out of the picture for this particular game. But it just showed what good husbandry of your squad can do, what good management of it can do. The way McLaren, he had Furlong at right back. He had Leisner and Lynch back in, and then he dropped in Scowen, who had been a bit of a bench option. Now he's more of a kind of, they describe him as a ratter. He's somebody who will a ratter, somebody who'll just kind of run around and just scurry around and just be awkward, an absolutely awkward midfielder. And then we'll get on to the game in a minute. And when they set out and they used Scowen in a clever way to stifle our goal kicks, where we had this idea where we're trying to play the ball out from the back.
Yeah, in the first couple of minutes, I was like, where the hell is Scowen playing? Because he was the highest of the press, but that seemed very deliberate. So look, Harry, take me through the first half, because the first half is virtually the game, isn't it?
It is.
It done by that point.
Yeah, we look at the goals in a minute, but the pattern of the game echoed in the first 15-20 minutes, even echoed the whole full 90 minutes. It wasn't that Queen's Park Rangers were on top of us and overwhelming us for the whole game in the way what happened at Elland Road earlier in the season, but it was more they would have pulses of energy and they would just come on top of us sporadically, control the game, It wasn't sustained pressure, but when it was pressure, it was quite incisive. That was my take on it.
Okay.
And there were times when you felt, well, we had opportunities on the counter, but yet again, when we had opportunities on the counter, we didn't. The lack of quality in that final third was just not there. The ball was either played optimistically out or to a Queen's Park Rangers defender. It was more hit and hope. And there were a couple of moments when we did get really threatening crosses into the box, and there was often nobody there to meet them. Whereas you felt the Queen's Park Rangers, when they were getting forward, it was more coordinated. Either the winger and the fullback were working well together, or when the ball came in, there was usually a couple of people in there to meet it. Nowhere near the Leeds level, I have to say, but when they did get forward, they did it with. There was a degree of purpose and there was a degree of method to it, I felt, which we didn't have.
Have you seen a more organised, or more obviously organised? Some teams, they seem to have organisation, but like Sheffield United, for example, have organisation, but some flair and some chaos added. But this seemed very. I mean, we noticed in the warm up this incredible back four warm up of shape and Origo Saka type moving all together, but they were very compact and very organised.
They were. Something we both spotted, the Ipswich back four in the pre-match warm-up were just passing the ball from right back across to left back to the centre-backs, which happened quite a lot during the game, to say the least. Whereas, I've never seen it before, Queen's Park Rangers, they were literally lined up in a four, and they were kind of literally running up and down. It was almost a bit like...
I've heard Ian Wright talk about George Graham doing that.
Yes, it was Tony Adams. Yeah. It was Tony Adams, and every so often, and I think I saw, if I'm not mistaken, Leisner put his hand up a couple of times
in the warm up.
In the warm up to kind of practice the offside line,
getting in the linesman's head.
Getting in the linesman's head. Just so how can we do it? It was very effective, I have to say.
So yeah. Take me through the ebb and flow up to the first goal, and then.
It was
decisive first goal, let's just say.
As I said, the pattern, they were just looking through the notes I have here. In terms of the overall quality of the game, I've written down here, it was a mid-table versus a lower-end table team, quality-wise. And I made a comment to you, I remember the first half, saying, this is hardly Villa Leeds, is it?
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, it was quite imperfect. There were the usual headed duels that we're used to. Some, as I say, a few half chances. Queen's Park Rangers with more intent. Freeman already, I was worried about him. He seems to have a knack of playing well against us.
Menace.
Yeah, absolute menace. There were a couple of moments when he came through, and if he couldn't, and this was ominous, if he couldn't actually get a shot or a cross off, he was very adaptive. He's very good at winning set pieces.
Won a free kick every time.
Yeah, he did. Very good at winning set pieces, I have to say, and they worked on that. But it was. As I say, there wasn't that sense of total control. A couple of great moments. There was a brilliant tackle by Downs, I remember, when they broke back against us. There was a 3v3, and that was one that I remember he just cherry picked the ball out. But there were clever moments, even going back to the very early yellow card, which we thought was harsh, that Chambers got. And again, that was just a very slick, incisive move down the right. I think it was Jolek, the winger, was linking with Wells, and if memory serves me right,
it was Furlong that got taken out.
It was Furlong that got taken out. That was the overlap on it, and Chambers was. That's right, no, because Furlong, even the Queen's Park Rangers fans were talking about it being a good bit of acting. It was, it wasn't really a yellow card, but it just showed. It was more the immediacy of the move, and they had that immediacy all the way through the game. When they did come forward, there was urgency about the way they went about their attacking moves. That's
so take me to this first goal.
Oh God! It was.
Where are we? 28th minute, and Ipswich were not playing badly at this point.
No, we just had a lovely through ball to Harrison, who lofted it just over the bar. Remember that happened just in the build up to it, and Pennington intercepted the move. To get that up, to get that move going, and then Nolan. I've written down here a suicidal casual ball. That's the best. I don't know whether he saw him or Wells managed to disguise himself or whatever. But if the one pass you can't make, if you're playing crossfeed balls, you've got to be on point with them. Through to Wells, who suddenly the last man you want through on goal. He came through, let off a fairly decent shot. Split opinion, I think, reading the forums on the way home about Gherkin's save. I thought Gherkin did reasonably well to actually get on it because it was a fierce shot and it did look. We were sitting. Not too far from the away end, and we were diagonally across from the penalty box, and it did look as if it swerved a bit, but Gherkin managed to stop it, and of course Jolek, who you spotted, had 2 yards ahead of Knudsen,
Yeah.
He'd spotted, he'd reacted very quickly.
That's no
to
reflection on Knudsen, because obviously we were in possession and the ball had been given away. But you could see him just sprint, because he was sprinting for a through ball rather than to rebound the shot. But
because we were just so utterly out of position, it couldn't have been worse. No, you can't legislate for that.
Harry, you said about Nolan's pass was casual. It was awful, but he plays most of his passes like that. This kind of stop the ball, and he never overhits a pass, does he?
No.
Do you know what I mean? I thought that was in character, but he obviously just lost his bearings or lost Wells for that. It was a terrible pass.
It was a poor pass. Ironically, because I felt Nolan had actually been playing quite well. He did. His general play, his link-up play, when we did break forward, yes, we didn't have the precision and purpose that QPR did, but there was a decent pattern.
Harry, I've had Joe Fair's voice in my head though about him being too safe, and I could maybe I'm persuading myself to see it now. I could see what Joe was getting at with Nolan, possibly, but you get a bit spoiled if you see, like, say, a Norwood or a Duffy for Sheffield United, where they're always looking for and I saw Hernandez obviously last week, but you imagine what that player would do in the same position, and sometimes it's a very much different pass that they pick, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It was, I don't know, it just was I'd love to, what was he thinking? What was he thinking? But at the first goal, I was actually more annoyed about the second goal, because that was a moment, it was an error. The second goal to me was eminently more avoidable. And I remember saying to you, in the build-up to the free kick, it was Freeman again, if I've got my notes right here, just writing it down live. And there was a situation where there were 2 Queen's Park Rangers attackers and 7 Ipswich defenders, thereabouts. And you could see all the QPR guys all they weren't racing up, they were kind of noodling up the field really, just to kind of keep, they were just saying, okay, let's see what happens here. Freeman had nothing on, absolutely nothing on, and yet he managed to blag a free kick. And I remember thinking, this could go horribly, horribly wrong, because we were worried before the game. We said Ward on the right is a concern. He was playing there, I should say, to obviate the concern of free kicks being given on that side, and having Ward there would hopefully minimise the number of free kicks. Not Ward wasn't. I don't think it was Ward who caused the foul. It was Downs who made the foul. But it was the last thing you want to do is give them a free kick on that side. And Freeman knew if you give him one, he will put it in well, and he always plays well against us. And in it goes. And we think it was Pennington who lost him, and it was a very sharp down header, which Gherkin could only get. He could only spoon it really. He couldn't get it. He couldn't get it around. It was a very well finished set piece, but the free kick should never have been given away in the first place. That to me was more of a classic relegation form goal than the first one, and that was it. It was really game over. Game over. It was game over after that, really.
But what about the pattern in the second half then?
Yeah. Interesting. It didn't really let up, but I realised that you make notes as you're going along, just any significant incidents, and it occurred to me that between kind of 55 and 70, just before the third goal, there wasn't a lot, as if Queen's Park Rangers had decided, right, this is the busy Christmas programme. And we've seen this happen time and time again, where teams this season have gone 2-0 up against us, and then they think, right, okay, we've got what we need now. I wrote down here, ominously, how many of these contained 2-0 defeats have we seen? It didn't end up, and then of course it didn't end up a 2-0 defeat. We were trying things. We were on the front foot. We were winning corners. There was, we weren't bereft of. We weren't negative or defensive, I guess is a better way of putting it. In the way we played, but you felt Queen's Park Rangers, if they needed another goal or if they needed another gear, they could have easily found it.
So tactically, they just flattened out the midfield, didn't they? No shape or I don't know how to describe it. Where you've got different lines, all in one line. Voslek and Freeman come in next to Scowen and Luongo, which I think suited Eze a bit more, didn't it? For his pressing job. Two banks of 4, as they say, and just sat back and...
That's brilliant, Ben. That's spot on. The other thing was that echoed what they were doing earlier in the season. because Freeman, of course, is a central midfielder. Vjola can actually tuck in as well quite nicely.
Yeah.
They can both play. They can both do that role. When they were really struggling in the early games of the season, when McLaren was trying to stabilise them, they did that two banks of four very tightly. So it's almost like it's a mode that they can drop back into when the circumstances dictate, which is exactly what they did, and they were containing us. I mean, so many times we were playing a ball over the top into space. There was nobody running onto it. The fullbacks weren't necessarily overlapping. There was no, or the ball would be played in and nobody. Or would be played too far, and the move would be dragged out wide. So we weren't able to properly threaten. There was one. I think Chalobah had one fizzed shot over, and we did have a. There was the one shot he did. He fizzed it just wide. We thought Lumley tipped it wide.
Yeah.
There was that one move, and there was a possible shout, and I think it was a handball, as well. Just before their third goal, the ball came in, and there was the Lionel. We decided he was consistent all game. He was an absolute not outer. He was giving nothing. so we were going to get that anyway. And then Ward, of course, went off with the knee injury, and then of course when we felt that it was going to peter out into a 2-0, it ended up at 3-0.
So what happens? It's Mr. Chair.
It was Mr. Chair. We were joking about this guy's name. There's a few. I mean, I think Middlesbrough have a guy called. Was it using nominative determinism?
Nominative determinism.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Indeed. Middlesbrough have a player called Lewis Wing, and Ilias Chair. He's never come up in the notes. He's been one of those fringe players. He's been in and around the occasional substitute appearance, maybe
just sitting there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. He was. I don't know if he went on loan to Wickham. It was that kind of level anyway. That kind of
strong.
You said getting there, but not quite. But obviously, but they were 2-0 up. They were comfortable, so they thought, well, we can let's throw a few kids on, save a few legs for what's coming up next.
We're going to call the Chair Boys, everybody.
Yes, Wickham. Yes. Yeah. Apologies. Sorry. Anyway, but Chair, to be fair, he brought a bit of was he peppery a little bit? Actually, I'll say Samuel, who came on later, he was peppery.
Okay,
I'll give him that. There is pepper there to be found. But sorry, but Chair, as I say, it was a nothing move really. They were over on the. On our left side, around the left back area, and he managed to blag his way through. And we thought it was I've written down here, a cushioned ball into the penalty area. I wasn't sure. You thought he might have actually.
I haven't seen it back, but it seemed to come very gently into an area where Wells wasn't particularly standing. I need to watch it back. I could be doing him a disservice there. It felt happenstance how the ball got to Wells, but he certainly used it well.
Yeah.
When he got it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He absolutely drilled it home. And that was and I was actually worried at that stage, because once it went to 3, the QPR fans smelled blood.
Yeah,
they definitely did. And you just think, no, stop it now. Let's get this. Let's contain this. This could get horrible. Thankfully, mercifully, we managed to hold. We held out. I think McLaren decided he took off. He made a couple of substitutions. I think Wells and Freeman were both withdrawn from action. So so they were able to kill it out. Roberts came on, of course, and to be fair to him, he we went. I think it was a kind of 4-4-1-1. We went really towards the.
Yeah, Harrison seemed to drop back a bit behind him.
He did, yeah. And Roberts was just sort of banging into centre halves and sort of cause. He won a few set pieces, but nothing of any threat. And the contrast, there was one second half free kick we had from identity
exactly the same position that Lancaster took.
That they from which Queen's Park Rangers scored. And again, to be fair to Queen's Park Rangers, it's such a balanced team. They had two big units at centre half, Lynch and Leisner, anything that was going in the box. We lack real height, I think. We had Harrison on, which gave us some. Yeah. He was able to balance it up a bit, but any set pieces that were coming in, they just nailed them out, headed away, and they were looking for a counter. The other thing which they did try early in the game, we didn't mention this, they were smashing corner kicks into the 6-yard box, and the two centre halves were both standing on the near post. They hadn't forgotten what had happened in the October game when Gherkin deflected the ball into the goal. They were definitely it's funny, that was obviously preying on their minds to see if they could follow up on that. But just after the third goal went in, there was a QPR. You pick up on what the home fans are saying, and one QPR fan said plaintively, It's been a dreadful half of football. You know, it was. They were seeing, and a Stoke fan said the same thing earlier in the month. He said, you know, seeing games out can be hard work.
Yeah,
and that's the level we're at.
Any positives at all? We'll run through what else has happened in the bottom.
Yeah.
In the bottom six, but any positives at all? Harrison seemed to be causing some nuisance in the first half.
He's good, but he needs help. He does need help. He was good. He was, and he did give us a bit of an aerial presence, which we just simply haven't had in lots of other games.
I think they were worried about him.
Yeah.
What about around the pitch elsewhere? I've seen some criticism for Chalobah just looking on Twitter, but I think obviously Skews would be an upgrade in that defensive position. But I think Chalobah seems to be taking a bit more responsibility with the ball nowadays.
No, I'd agree with that. There were a couple of moments when I felt we could have turned forward rather than going back. But I think it wasn't as bad as in the Hurst time days when it was always turning back. Chalobah did, particularly in the second half, he was trying to get us on the front foot going forward. I know we may have given away the set piece for the second goal, but again he put in some really brilliant tackles, and he was urgent, you know, he was busy around the field. But the contrast again in midfield between Luongo, who was able to sit in front of their back four and just almost like a Praetorian Guard, just literally patrolling backwards and forwards, breaking it up, giving it simple. Scowen then was the one who was actually bombing forward and causing problems. There was something, we didn't have the coherence that they have, but then again McLaren has had more time and to work with his squad, and he's got more quality as well, which we just don't have. A slightly odd positive from the game, which I read about on TWTV on the way back in the car, was the fact that Marcus Evans was at the ground. So in a way, I was rather pleased he was there to witness that. So we need reinforcements, and we don't need them flaking in through the back door on the 31st of January. We need them. You know, when Jules Holland has put his instruments down on New
Doesn't
Year's
he record that in October?
He's probably back in October. Metaphorically speaking, when the credits roll, we want names.
Well, Harry, look,
we want names.
The first game, they're not going to be in for the Millwall game, but then you have FA Cup, and I believe it's the 13th at home for Rotherham.
Yeah.
That's the deadline day, isn't it? That home game. Look, let's look at this in context, because it has been a bad day, and it was always going to be a bad day because you had Millwall playing Reading and Rotherham playing Bolton. So let's just go through this at the bottom. Ipswich, 15 points, and we do have to start looking at the goal difference now, because we were all optimistic last week saying 4 points, but the goal difference is the worst in the league by 6 goals, which is quite something, isn't it? So Ipswich bottom on 15, 4 points up to Reading now, who looking bother after today. They're on 19. Bolton have had a little surge up one place, 21 points. They've got their first win in forever. They beat Rotherham, so they've now dragged Rotherham into a bit closer to the line, and Millwall are still there on 22. And then, if there is some wins from the bottom team, you have Wigan on 25 and Brentford on 26. But Harry, now from an Ipswich point of view, that is a 7-point gap plus goal difference as well. Is today as catastrophic as it seems, or is it a bit massaged by the fact that two of those teams had to pick up points and they've had decisive results? What do you think?
Well, we talked about this on the way up in the car. I'm one of life's optimists, and I thought, well, we've got it back to 4 points, and I thought, well, maybe today things could go in a way could work in our favour, but today was probably the worst possible outcome we could have had in terms of in the immediate term. But then again, it has brought other teams into the picture, such as Rotherham, who wouldn't have been in the picture.
We need as many people in the relegation battle as possible. The only danger is it ends up being a relegation battle between all the teams above us, whilst we watch from too many points behind below. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Is there a danger with this? Somebody mentioned there's a poster I'm very fond of on TWTD, Cheltenham Blue, referenced the Sunderland documentary. Is it worth mentioning that?
I don't want to mention the Sunderland documentary because there's just too many similarities with what's gone on.
Yeah.
What's gone on there and what's going on at Ipswich. You could literally rattle off about 10 things that we've seen happen this season that all appear on that Sunderland story. Right, let's quickly
stay in the northeast.
Do this. We'll stay in the northeast because obviously, look, Christmas time and whatnot, we're not on normal podcast schedule. So Harry and Rich are not going to be... There's no preview show this week. So what we can do is we can get Harry's take on Boro, who had a miserable 1-0 defeat at home to Sheffield Wednesday today. Let me just get my league table up one more time. They have dropped down to 5th place with Birmingham actually in QPR, all within a game's worth, and Villa and Forest have dropped down to 10th.
Yeah.
Goodness me. What's your take on Boro, who have, in the last 6 games, drawn, lost, won, lost. 5 points in the last 6 games, not good form, not anywhere near a lot of the teams at the top there. 5 points from the last 6.
It's not great. There's and that included a home defeat with a pretty strong team against Burton in the quarterfinal of
19th in the form table over the last 6 games.
I've been watching them today. As I said, we haven't had a detailed look at their players yet. I'll do that tomorrow, and then those notes will go up on Friday on TWTD, so there'll be further detail available. But the overall pattern is quite grim. I've never ever seen this written before. They played at home to Sheffield Wednesday, who have been struggling. He set out a 5-4-1, from which with one of the 4 midfielders, Besic, sitting in a holding role, and Assombalonga kind of in another postcode at the other end of the field is the only way I can put it. Really, that remote. McNair and Friend were the two who were going to bump forward. And this, I've never ever seen this written before in a match day thread when a team goes up. Somebody just wrote the words "kill me." They're being psychologically broken by what's going on. What a boring team. We're set up not to lose. One attacking player at home against a struggling team. Boxing Day. Hope in the world. Let's all look forward to the second half of the season. We're still in the playoff hunt, and and one of them said they reckoned the bench could beat the first team. There was more attacking intent on that. No movement, no bravery, no willing players wanting the ball to put the ball into a forward area. They are struggling. They're really struggling for goals. And this thing that, from what I can see, that Pulis has done, where he's tried to set the team up to be hard to beat and nick 1-0 wins, seems to have blunted their attacking edge so significantly that they're actually finding it hard to score, and teams are realising that they can actually come onto them a little bit more, so they can be threatened. And I think one of the games, there was one of the recent games they had, certainly against Queen's Park Rangers, they were damning because QPR beat them 2-1 a couple of weeks back. They were actually criticising the defensive disorganisation, which you simply would never expect that at all from a Pulis team at all. One of them said the Ipswich game must be Pulis' last chance, otherwise the fans will walk away in droves. Absolutely brutal. The only place we're going to finish end is mid-table. They're all crying out for Slavisa Jokanovic.
Slavisa takes a while to bed in his stuff. How does this work though? Because when you've got a fragile Ipswich team, potentially Lambert might change a couple of players.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing that they're in pretty rum form?
It could work in our favour because the crowd will turn against them. That's the first thing. If this continues, you'll see the crowd suddenly. There was a little echo of it at Stoke at the beginning of the month when you suddenly spotted the crowd getting very frustrated with Rowd's negative football, and there could be the same thing here. I haven't checked the statistics, and I may be wrong on this, but it's indicative in any case. One of them is saying that they've got the second lowest number of goals scored at home, apart from Bolton.
Wow.
So as I say, I haven't stood that number up, but that's something I would want to look into. It could well be that it's a grim 0-0 draw, which we would happily have taken at the beginning of the Christmas run-in, and it sets us up for the Millwall game afterwards.
That is correct. So the home form, they're 15th.
Yeah.
For home form in the league with 11 goals, but a positive goal difference, 8 against. Ipswich also have 11. Bolton only have 8 home goals. So yes, that is a correct statistic.
Yeah.
But it's hard to be optimistic. What do you think that? What do you think Lambert's gonna do? Assume that Gherkin keeps his place and the back four stays the same. I think we can assume that, can't we?
How much room does he have to manoeuvre, Ben? That's the question.
No, in respects of taking people out, giving people a rest, or will he just not do that?
I don't know. Well, Ward looked. We've had to find out what's happened to Ward.
He
will need a rest. He was injured. Lancaster did play brightly, but again, is it fair to criticise the wide departments for the lack of coordination, for the lack of overlapping, for the
in the fullbacks,
and the wide forwards?
Knudsen had moments in the second half where he got forward.
Yeah.
Knudsen certainly had a better attacking game than Spence did, but then you can argue that. I suppose the free kick came from Spence's side, but it wasn't Spence, was it? Gave it away, and
no.
The second goal did come from down Knudsen's side. But sometimes it's a bit yobby football supportery to just it came from down that side, so therefore it's not always the case. You would think, does Harrison start again, or does he rest up Harrison and put Jackson or Roberts in?
It's a question of fitness. If it's a question of ability, Harrison starts.
Yeah.
It's just a question of whether Harrison can actually. Does he have 2 full games in him in 5 days? That's because you know.
He's definitely not going to do 90, but whether he does the first 60 or the last 30 is it'll be one or the other, probably, won't it?
Yeah, it will. It'll be one thing, because of course we know that Lambert may or may not have watched the original Middlesbrough game. Indeed. So he will have been aware of how effortlessly they broke our midfield press to score the first goal, and he'll be anxious probably to set us up to be tight, not to give Boro. It could well be that we go out, we keep our shape. The thing about Queen's Park Rangers today, again, and this is the direction of travel that Lambert is taking us on, but it's the quality and the time factor, really. The Queen's Park Rangers had tremendous shape, not just with the 2 lines
and
organisation through the game. Everybody knew their roles, not just where they needed to be, and that's obviously what we're getting towards. And now, a first half hour of that on Saturday would be fantastic.
Yeah,
it really would be fantastic. So again, I can't see there being that many changes. I'd even see the same midfield trio beginning the game, no question at all. Possibly a replacement for who would you put in instead of Ward? Maybe Edwards. That's a possibility. And then Lancaster to switch in. It's a question of legs, but there's not a lot in the just looking at the tank. I was looking at the just looking at the squad. You're looking down the names there. Who is there actually to bring in? Possibly Dazelle, but they are quite a physical midfield, but Middlesbrough, so there wouldn't necessarily be. I think.
But then again, Harry, today the complaint in the second half was QPR sat in.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anyone to pierce the ball through, and Dazelle seems to be our best hope for
if anybody's got the vision
for doing that. In the absence of Nolan being a bit more brave on the ball, don't you think?
Possibly, yeah. So in which case, then you'd be looking at a midfield of. Would you be thinking of possibly bringing Dazelle in to replace as a substitute for Downs at some point and leaving Chalobah?
I don't know. I mean,
or to have him beside
if
Nolan,
you want to be stiffer, you need Downs in there, don't you? They do look a bit more physical and a bit more.
Yeah.
I think Chalobah prefers having say Downs next to him, but we shall see, Harry.
It'll be interesting. The one thing I'd say about Middlesbrough, they did one other fans did talk about Middlesbrough. He said, why bother making any substitutions when the ball is flying over their head all game? So they are very they're very worried. That direct, it's all that sort of primitive football. It's
unfortunately, Harry, though at the moment I mean, I say at the moment because I was very optimistic after the previous 2 games, but we've seen the horrible, soft, flaky, weak Ipswich today. And if there's one team you want when you're having a bad run and you're at home, it's soft, flaky Ipswich. So, and this stat as well, today was the 11th game,
Yeah.
away game consecutive, Ipswich have conceded two or more goals, and you're just never going to get any points away from home if you're constantly leaking 2 goals. So the real cynic in me said incoming 2-0 defeat at Boro without them having to play particularly well. The optimist, and we always optimistic on here, says, you know, hold it.
Yeah.
Get to 0-0 at half time, and you know, what can you do? But it's not collapsing and making any stupid mistakes again to put yourself in a negative position, isn't it?
Yeah. Today's game was a throwback.
Yeah,
it was
like the Millwall game, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. You said that we were walking out the stadium, and you said that, and you were strolling back to the car. You could see the parallels, just those individual moments that suddenly, you know, we just undermined ourselves. It was time and time again, and teams just had to wait for that. Though the consolation, as I say, is that Boro, you know, they really seem to have lost the way. Not just in terms of the kind of playing, because they played the 5-4-1 away to Reading as well, which again had the Boro fans were just doing that. They're not about it. And this problem that they so hell bent is Pulis on playing this defensive football that the strikers are playing themselves out of form. Right. I shouldn't be tempting fate by saying that, but you think that suddenly this is their moment to wake up again. I mean, they went against. I think it was against. Was it against Queen's Park Rangers or Reading away? They had Hugel and Sambalonga in the starting lineup, and they were all. I think it was against Queen's Park Rangers, and they were all terribly excited. Oh, great, we've got the two of them in. No, but Sambalonga was stuck on the left wing. So, you know, Hugel was left up front, and Hugel for them is he sums up everything that is wrong about Pulis' football. Somebody who's a bit of a unit and not technically very, very good. So in that sense, they are a team with problems, and I would argue that Queen's Park Rangers was a more difficult game than Middlesbrough, because Middlesbrough have lost the way. They might have technically better players, but they're being badly used. Whereas,
so do we owe Mullet an apology in that regard then? He asked us that a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah,
maybe he was right.
He was right. I think he was.
With hindsight,
yeah.
With half hindsight,
yeah,
because we haven't had the other game yet.
Yeah. But I did. When I was started looking at Boro, I had to think, hang on, because you go on, you think, oh God, you see all the big names, you think, oh, here we go, we're in trouble. You know, Sambalonga, Johnny Housen, Friend, you know, Besic. These are all really skilled practitioners. But actually, when you start looking at how they're actually being used, you realise that you know they're not. They're all playing at 70% ability, and a few of them have said as well that some of the players are coasting through games, that there is a loss of trust.
Well, you can hide in that defensive system, can't you? Because you can say, look, this is what I'm being instructed to do.
I found the quote, some of our players are going through the motions right now, and several are clearly unhappy. Now, that's a bit of a generalisation, but there's simply no way you've seen that from any Queen's Park Rangers players today.
No.
So, in that sense, we could, you know, pick up a point at Middlesbrough, you know, give everybody a shot in the arm, and that takes us on then to this little group of winnable games that are coming up. Yeah.
There's hope, Harry.
There's
always hope.
There's got to be.
And that is what kills you. I hope you have enjoyed this impromptu show without script, without equipment, but we thought we'd put one out.
Yeah.
And I should now plug when the next show is going to be, but I don't really know when that's good. So we may well be back with a flagship, but the only problem is that then the Millwall game follows immediately after that. So we may wait until after the Millwall game to do something. But I will have a word with the rest of the team. Yeah. Preview show wise,
Accrington's our next one. It's a kind of a glimpse into the future, because some of the Accrington message boards, not just some of the Accrington message board echoes a lot of League One ones, in that they're incredibly quiet at times, and you're having to scratch around to see to actually piece the picture together.
Harry.
If it's out there, we'll find it. Put it that way. Yeah.
Is that the 18?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
if they're out there, we'll find it.
If there's a comment to be found about the third choice left back, we'll know all about it.
You are the B.A. Baracas of the... No, you'd be Hannibal, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Hannibal probably, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Dear. No, but as I say...
I love it when a plan comes together.
No, so say Rich and I there will be Accrington. We'll probably have a little look back as well at what's gone on over Christmas.
Okay.
It'll be good. But as I say, there is, despite today, looking at what's going on up in the northeast, up in Cleveland, I reckon there is a possibility we could, don't go with total trepidation into this Middlesbrough game. I may regret saying that, but from this point of view, there might be something that we can actually do.
There's a chance for a Spinal Tap quote here, because we can say "Hello Cleveland," different Cleveland, but there we go.
We'll take it.
Thank you very much for watching, listening. As always, you can subscribe on iTunes, Acast, for the audio version of this podcast. Again, if the sound wasn't as good as it normally is, we're literally staring at an iPad and there's no headsets or anything today. But we wanted to do some content before Harry drives off back to Bath after our lovely Boxing Day out.
Happy day out in Shepherd's Bush.
At Blue Monday ICFC on Twitter. At Harry from
Bath.
Harry from Bath on Twitter for Harry. At Benjamin Bloom for me. Subscribe to the YouTube feed. We have a lot of non-Ipswich fans on here. I think it's great that we have QPR fans, Middlesbrough fans, lots of Norwich fans tend to be watching this season. Sheffield United fans. So please subscribe. Come one, come all. Just don't poke the fun too hard this season. Harry, thank you very much. Thanks you for watching, listening, everyone, and we will see you again soon. Probably with a flagship show after Millwall, maybe, possibly. We'll figure it out. Say goodbye, Harry.
Bye. Enjoy the rest of Christmas.